What is up, guys? Dzeeff here, and welcome to week 1 of 3 weeks of competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Events that I'll be profiling over the course of the next month. Basically, what happened is that yesterday there was the Rosemont Regional, and then next week there's YCS Atlanta, and then the week after that there's ARG Circuit Series Chicago. Very exciting stuff, because, you know, when I go to an event right afterwards, I want to make some changes, but I don't really get a chance to test those changes until like a couple weeks later, and by then new cards may have come out, or the format may have shifted, but in this case we have 3 weeks all right in a row, so I can make minute changes to my deck. And the Rosemont Regional, the big reason I went to it wasn't to get my invite. I already have my invite, which, by the way, is pretty cool, because last season I spent like the entire season just trying to get my invite and I couldn't do it, and then already this year I have 4 invites, which obviously they don't stack, they don't really matter, and I'm still hungry for that top 8. That's what I want to do with this regional, but it's cool. I mean, it shows that I'm improving, it shows that my deck building is getting better, which is really exciting from a player perspective. I was 6-1 go after round 7, so I was doing really well this event. My deck was performing very well. It sort of overperformed my expectations, and then I lost both rounds 8 and 9. I just got savaged. My deck just pooped out. It didn't really draw the right combination of cards. My opponents do really well, so that was really disappointing. But overall, those first 7 rounds, the deck was running perfectly. I really was happy with what I did. A lot of the tech choices that I made turned out really well. However, the weird thing is that my matchups weren't really diverse. You know, I think back to YCS Chicago, there were so many different decks at that event that I played against. I played against 2 Striker and 2 Thunder Dragon, 3 Altergeists, and then a variety of different strategies like Crusadia and Guru Control. At this event, that wasn't really the case. I played against 1 Guru Control in round 1, and then I played against 4 Sky Striker and 4 Danger Thunder Dragon variants. Well, one of them was a pure Thunder Dragon variant, and that's not really a lot of diversity, and also it's no Salaman Great, which to some people that might sound like a good thing, but because I teched my deck, I mean my main and my side deck out for Salaman Great, man, that really sucked. There were so many cards I didn't really get a chance to use. The good news is that I've been playing this deck with my friend who plays Salmon Great. We've been doing a lot of testing, so I know that those cards are good in that matchup, but I really think I probably would have top 8'd if those last 2 rounds would have been against Salmon Great. You know, for the last like 5 rounds, I kept saying, okay, I'm super overdue to play against Salmon Great. My whole deck is tech to beat that strategy, and then I just never got a chance to play against it. My losses, I lost to 2 of the 4 Sky Strikers, and I lost to 1 of the 4 Thunder Dragons. I actually think this deck is just really good right now. Against the entire metagame, I think Salmon Greats is a decent matchup. I think it's more in your favor if you build your deck correctly. That's pretty much all I have to say before getting the deck profile. Oh, one last thing. This mat right here, this like Dangerous Snake mat, I saw this on Zodiac Duels, the Facebook group, doesn't really matter. And I put a comment on there, I just like, oh, how much is this? Like, I want this mat. And the owner of the store, which is called Zero Damage Gaming, I'll put a link in the description, he just like sent me one. He didn't pay me or anything to talk about it, but he sent me one. And the even cooler part that I didn't know after I used this thing at the regional, I got a lot of compliments on it, and you can't see it in the video, but it's like it has stitching on the outside, which is really cool for a rubber mat. I didn't know this, but he actually put in a discount code on his website, so if you put in Dzeeff when you check out, just my name, you get 10% off, which is like super sick. And then also there's like another version of the mat that's like a cloth mat that has 2 sides and has Danger Jackalope on the other side. But anyway, this mat's really cool, and I just want to give a shout out to that company. Super nice guys. I didn't really expect that. I just want to get it for myself, but I mean, he just sent it to me, so that was cool. So anyway, I of course played 3 copies of Altergeists Marionetter, 3 copies of Altergeists Multifaker, 3 copies of my Luseek, 2 copies of the one that I can never pronounce, and 1 copy of Concrete. All that's pretty standard, so I won't spend too much time talking about that. I will quickly say that I did draw my Luseek a lot this tournament, which was really cool. So for the hand traps, which is the biggest like difference between this version and previous versions, I did play 3 Ash Blossom, which I have been playing. I think most people are going to use this in pretty much every deck out there besides Danger Thunder Dragon or Orcus, I suppose. But the big card that I played that I think a lot of people are going to disagree with, but I think that is completely necessary to actually advance this strategy, because Altergeists right now, they're not looking so hot. It's pretty tough out there with a lot of different decks out there. I mentioned this in like a video, but anyway, this card's really good for a lot of reasons. So it's good because it's a free summon, and it's good. The best part about this card is that it fixes your hands. So you can draw hands that are like all trap cards and no monster cards, and this will get you to the monster cards and put back the trap cards. You can draw hands that are the opposite, all monster cards, no trap cards. This will get you those trap cards. And then the other cool thing about this card is that it digs to side deck cards, and it gets you to extravagance. this is like the card that like makes this deck like good again, and I know that it's very expensive, and I do know, I'm fully aware that you can't summon Multi-Faker the turn you summon this, but the cool thing is the turns that you'd be summoning this aren't the turns that you'd be Multi-Fakering. Now some people might say, well, what if you draw Impermanence, Faker, and this going second? Well, if you draw Faker, Impermanence every single game, more power to you. I don't actually draw that combo that often. I think most players will tell you that they don't draw that combo very often, and if you open Faker, Impermanence, of course, just Faker Impermanence, but in most scenarios you don't open that, you're going to want to be using this guy because it's just so good at digging towards Ash, digging towards fixing your hand, and also digging towards DD Crow, which I played 2 copies of. So I know this is kind of a controversial pick. I could probably talk for hours about it, so I'll just end it there, but it's a very good card. It overperformed my expectations. I thought it was good already, but it definitely performed even better than I ever could have imagined. DD Crow, on the other hand, kind of underperformed, mostly because I didn't play against any Salamangreats, and this card's really good against Salamangreats because at least when my friend and I were testing the mirror match, it seemed like the card that I never wanted him to have, just because they always hit the Spinny or the Foxy or something along those lines. Just cutting you off from resources is super important. The problem with this card though is that because I didn't play Salamangreats, it was pretty bad. It's like against Skystriker, technically you can hit Engage when they like Kagari, and technically you can hit Ray, but it's just not impactful enough other than like the very first turn and if they have no other cards. And against Thunder Dragons, it's pretty much useless. It's actually like it's not even just like neutral, it's like negative. Like you don't want to use this against anything that they have. It's just so bad. Sometimes you can catch like a Diabolos or something, but overall this card's like garbage against Thunder Dragons. So I don't know, like going forward, would I play this card, would I not play this card? Maybe like a card like Effect Filler is a little bit more generic, still pretty good against Salamangreats, actually still really good against Salamangreats, but much better against Sky Strikers, and really good against Thunder Dragons. You hit the Skull Dread, but it was a card that I drew with the Thanos Dragon pretty often. So I don't know, those are my hand traps. I felt that made sense just because like I feel like when you go first with this deck, you probably should be winning, kind of like every deck in Yu-Gi-Oh right now, but going second, I really want to have like cards that let me play the game. And then we had 3 copies of Extravagance, pretty much the entire reason to play this deck now. I mean, Guru Control has access to this card as well, but I'm not like a huge fan of the deck. I think it's like way too linear and easily destructible. And I felt good about like the Guru matchup going into this term. I feel like this is like the right choice for me personally. I don't know. I don't know how Guru Control wins. I know I lost to an OIC Chicago, but I like bricked really bad that game. I just, I get that how it wins when it goes first, but I don't know how it goes second. But anyway, 3 Extravagance, really good card. 2 copies of Secret Village. It's pretty strong. Obviously, because I played 4 Sky Strikers, I wish I would have had 3 copies in my main deck, but there might be like an alternate reality where like, because my first loss was to a Sky Striker player, the second one that I played against, and maybe like if I beat that guy because I had 3 Secret Village, maybe then I just play like all Salamangreat, and then like the Secret Village aren't very good. I felt fine main decking this card specifically because I think it's okay against Salamangreats when you go first. The big difference is that this card's really good against Sky Strikers at any point in the duel, like going first, going second, turn 3, turn 5, and it's not very good against Salamangreats outside of turn 1, or maybe if they get to like a simplified game state, it's pretty good. But that's like the big problem with maining 3 this card. I think going forward, maybe main 3, it just kind of depends on how much I think the metagame is going to shift from Atlanta. And then we have the 2 crazy techs that I played. And I played 41 cards. This was my 41st card. 1-for-1 and Super Polymerization. So these cards were nuts. I truly mean that. I mean, these cards were like the best tech options that I played. This card in particular is really cool if you open... I mean, you can open like anything. Just getting Multi-Seek's really strong first turn. But if you open Marionetter and Multi-Faker and 1-for-1, you end with 3 negates off of just those 3 cards. It's really strong. The way that Altergeists are balanced as a deck is that they're slow. You can't really make Hexia turn 1 without drawing cards like this, or like playing like double summon or something. But in general, the way this deck is balanced is by the fact that you have to like set up for a turn with just like normal summon a monster pass before you get your combos going. I mean, you can't even summon like Multi-Faker on the first turn for the most part. So that's why this card is so broken, and it performed really well. And Super Poly, like, what do I say about Super Poly? It's so good. It's really good in theory against Salamangreats. Obviously, all Salamangreat players are siding the card for mirror matches. Really great against Thunder Dragons, Pure and Danger. Against the Danger variant, they usually end with Colossus and then 2 of the Negation guys. But both the Negation guides are dark, which is really cool, because that means if you can bait 1 Negation, which is pretty easy, usually on the pot or usually on like a Miley Seeker effect or something, as long as you can bait 1 of them, you can Super Poly, hit the Colossus, hit the other one, and just like break their board. And the really cool part is that the Predaplant Fusion Monster is actually like a legitimately good card. It has an extra negation effect that's really solid. So Super Poly was fantastic, so good. Once again, just like I found out YCS Chicago, I was losing games because I couldn't play the game, which I know is ironic because I'm playing like Floodgates, but when you go second, you just like don't open hand traps. With this deck, it's so hard to come back. So I just want to play cards that were good going second. Anyway, for the traps, which I didn't play a ton of, I think it's only like 15 in here, which it kind of bit me in the butt a couple times. It was sometimes I didn't have draw a trap to trigger multi-faker. Anyway, 3 copies of Spoofing. This card wasn't very good. Like, this is the worst best card out there. It's not the best bad card. I don't think any of these cards in this deck are bad, and I don't think Spoofing's a bad card. It's just like a good card, but it's like the worst of all the good cards in this deck because it just gets hit by everything. It just gets hit by Ash every time, gets hit by Twin Twist every time. It even got MST'd once and it lost me a game. This is just like, I don't know. I feel like if I wanted to cut this deck to 40 cards, I would cut 1 copy of this. I feel like even if I want to still play 41, I'll cut 1 copy of this. It's just like, I don't know, it just really, at this tournament in particular, it just did really underperform, so I don't know about that card. But, I mean, it's obviously good. I think Altergeists players will probably understand what I'm talking about, where it's like the best worst card, or the worst best card, but I think a lot of people don't play deck are like, well, of course Spoofing's like super good, why would you ever cut it? But it's kind of in a weird spot sometimes. And then 2 copies of Protocol and 1 copy of Manifestation. Of course, those cards are going to be played. And then we have 3 copies of Impermanence. Now I can say, I mean, I always knew it just from playing Yu-Gi-Oh! For a while. I kind of understand how things work sometimes. But I always knew this card like wouldn't really conflict with Thanos. But after playing an entire event, I can say without any doubt in my mind that this card does not conflict with Thanos. I think people that are saying that are just trying to make an excuse for like not buying this card or not buying Thanos. But I think if you have both of them, you should play both of them. Even in the only, because like, it doesn't even matter, right? Because if you have this and Thanos, you just do this first. And if you draw into this with Thanos, you just put it back. So like the only case where it really matters is when you draw 2 of these off Thanos, and like when is that ever going to happen? So that was really good. I only drew like Faker and Permanence once. I don't know why it's worth mentioning, but maybe I'll mention it anyway. 2 copies of Strike, 1 copy of Judgment. I cut the Warning, which is much better against like Denko and much better against like Monster Reborn and stuff like that, but it's Strike's really good against hand traps, and because I'm not playing Call by the Grave anymore, I want something to hit the Ash and the Spoofing. Wasn't enough. I feel like I just want more Solemns. I feel like I want, I don't know, it's weird. It's already 41 cards, and I feel like a lot of these cards are really good, except for like the 1 copy of Spoofing that I'd cut. So there's not a lot of space to make a ton of changes, at least not until the format changes. And then 2 copies of Summon Limit, 1 copy of Order. These are all just kind of Floodgates where you just like flip them and you win the game. Very interactive, Konami. Thanks for keeping these around for me. But I think Summon Limit's like the big hype card right now. And yeah, it was really good. It was really good going first. It was okay going second against most decks because you can just like break your opponent's board. This kind of puts them on like level playing field because the reason this card is so good in Altergeists in particular, people like don't really understand this. Obviously like it's a Floodgate, but the reason it's so good in Altergeists is because your opponent is usually just summoning twice, right? They're summoning twice on their turn and then 0 times on your turn, but in Altergeist, you're summoning twice on your turn and twice on your opponent's turn because of Faker. So this card gives you, when you activate this card, it's like every 2 turns, you're summoning 4 times and your opponent's only summoning twice. So that's why it's so good against like every deck that's like a big deck out there, just because they're not able to summon that many times. It's also particularly good going first against anything, but even against Skystriker, it's okay because if they Ray and then summon Kagari, you can activate Summon Limit and then bounce the Kagari back to their hand, and then they can't summon the Ray from their grave, which is really good, just cutting them off all those cards. I think I would play like 3 of those going forward. And then we have the extra deck, which doesn't really matter. We have 3 of the only card you ever make, 3 Hexia, 2 of the only other card you ever make, which is Link Kribo. Some people play 3 of this card. I still think that's wrong. I don't see other people doing this. Maybe I'm just stupid, but I'm playing 2 Kildolga or whatever and 2 Prime Banshee, only because like I feel like no matter what you do, no matter what you banish, it really doesn't matter that much. But I feel like one thing you need to have in your extra deck is an Altergeist monster to make when you multi-faker, because when you multi-faker, you can't summon anything besides Altergeist monsters for that turn. And when you're winning, when you're going to the extra deck, you want to be able to summon things using Mylusi to get those searches. It's really important. It's like all the big combos. So I feel like you want to play like more Altergeist Link monsters, just because like the only times that you're really Link summoning are when you're already like fakering on your turn. Like sometimes you like Link summon when you don't faker in a turn, but it's very, very rare. And you can't even like Link summon a non-Altergeist and then summon faker. It's not how it works. So, like you have to you have to only summon Altergeist that entire turn. It's just kind of a weird situation, but I never summon any of these, but like they're just in there just in case you banish all the Hexias. Luckily, I was actually had like a really high success rate with not banishing Hexias, so that was really cool. And then we have the only two non-Altergeist Link monsters, one Nightmare Phoenix, which is only in there for outing, and there can be only one, and one Claramuchka. I summoned this like 3 times. It was like pretty good, just because I played like so many Skyscrapers. You don't want to make Link Rebo. And then for the fusion monsters, we played 2 copies of Violet Chimera and 2 copies of the Predaplant. Both these cards are just very specifically for Super Poly. They're not for anything else. I got this idea from a Subterra Guru control player that topped with, I don't know what his name was, I'm sorry, I should have written down, but he topped with 1 copy Super Poly in his deck, and he had 14 fusion monsters, 14 2-ofs. I actually have to play a couple like real exotic monsters, but these 2 are the most impactful. This one's good against Thunder Dragons. This one's good against the Salamangreat deck, obviously. But these cards are really good. The reason you play 2 is so you don't banish them off of your Extravagance. And that never conflicted. You can even, it doesn't matter too much, like even if you have Extravagance Super Poly, because you can Super Poly in the Standby phase, which is pretty broken, which I did a couple times. And then for the side deck, 3 Prankatops. So this card was really, really bad because I didn't play against Salamangreats. It's a card that I will keep in there, despite the fact that it didn't really see like a lot of play at this regional, just because I know I didn't play against Salamangreats, so cards like this are going to seem worse. That's pretty much all it was in there for, so naturally it's just not going to be very, very good if I play only Skyscraper and Thunder Dragon. It is, I don't know, it's notably kind of okay against the Danger Thunder Dragon deck, because Hot Red and Zombie Sign can only negate face-up cards, so if you just summon this, you can just like pop one of them. So it's like okay against those cards actually, but it's not like the best thing. It's obviously terrible against Spirit Thunder Dragon. 2 Lancia, probably should have played 3. 1 Inspector Border. This is like the, I don't know, it was just like the 15th card. I wanted to play like a summon limit, but if you look at my extra deck, I'm not going to go through, or look at my side deck, I'm not going to go through like all my side decking choices. I actually like wrote a list. It was like 20 decks long of just like side decking choices, first and second. But there was like, I found the weak point in my deck, because I had to play so many other cards, was going first against other decks like mine, like Altergeist and Guru Control. So I played this guy instead of the summon limit, just because in side decking, like there's like 11 cards I want to take out and only 6 I want to put in the mirror match, and I felt like just cutting the summon limit and playing the border made it like one more good card to actually draw going first, because mirror match can be kind of tough. So I don't know, it's whatever. Probably should play some of them though, because I saw almost no Altergeist players at this event, because yeah, the deck's kind of fallen out of favor. And then we have the 3rd copy of this. I did that in basically every single time I went second. I'm trying to think. I mean, not against the Guru Control guy, but every single one of the 8 rounds besides Guru, well, of the 9 rounds. So the last 8 rounds, I don't know why this is so hard to say. The last 8 rounds of the day, I sided this in every single time I went second against Skyscrapers and Thunder Dragons. It's just way too good not to play. Definitely worth the price tag. Like when I first played Impermanence, I didn't think it was worth the price tag. Now I've kind of changed my mind. This card, like immediately I recognize like why it's so expensive. There is no other card that like does what this card does. It's so good. And then 1 copy of Secret Village, which maybe I would main, maybe I wouldn't. I don't know. It's definitely, you definitely need 3 total copies. I almost want to play like 2 Metaverse, just because like my 2 of my 3 losses were to Skyscrapers. I mean, like, yeah, they drew like really good, and I didn't draw super hot some of those games, but I think that you just like, I don't know, Skyscrapers, it seems like these days, because people have like sort of figured out how to play against Altergeists, and they're playing like there can be only one and Prankatops. I feel like you really need to draw a Floodgate to beat that deck these days, and that's like the only matchup where I really feel like you have to draw the Floodgate. And then we have 3 copies of Wiretap, because, yeah, Red reboots a card, and that sucks. 2 copies of Evenly Matched. This card was really, really bad for me. It's only really in there for Guru and the Altergeist matchup, which weren't very popular. And against Guru, like, I didn't draw it, and I still just, like, beat him pretty easily. It's just, like, I don't know, it has negative synergy with Thanos. Like, I used to side this card against Skyscrapers, and it's good against Skyscrapers, like, if you don't have the Thanos, but when you, like, Thanos is a lot more impactful because it evens out your hand and gets to the Secret Villages, and this doesn't do that. So, I tried to, actually, the round that I lost against Skyscrapers, I did, in fact, try to side this and Thanos Dragon, just to test it out. It's not the YCS, I just want to see how it goes, yeah, it was terrible, so I never did that again. I just did that one game, it was awful, and, yeah, it's like, it's kind of the same thing along the line of Impermanence. If you couldn't like activate Impermanence when you drew it, what I'm trying to say is that when you Thanos into Evenly Match, you just put it back. But the problem is that with Impermanence, if you draw it for turn, you can set it and use it as like an effect negation. If you draw this card and set it, it doesn't really do anything, so that kind of sucks. But it was like, I don't know, maybe someday it'll be good again, but it's really bad against Salamangreats as well. and then 2 copies of Heavy Stormduster. I feel like I have to play these because if I don't, my deck has like an auto loss against Samir or Guru control, but this card was also terrible, so I don't really know. It's really bad against all 3 of the top decks. You're never going to side against any of them. Maybe you decide it against Skystrikers sometimes if you don't have like anything else, but it's pretty bad against Skystrikers with this deck. Your opponent doesn't really beat you by setting up a huge board. They beat you by breaking your board and then just killing you. But anyway, that's pretty much going to wrap up today's deck profile, my Rosemont Regional Report. Stay tuned for the next couple weeks. You will get a cool little update on this deck. I'm probably just going to play Altergeists all 3 times. Maybe if I like really punt it at like Atlanta, I'll switch to Salamangreats or Danger Thunder Dragons or something. But like other than that, like I'll probably play Altergeists all 3 this week, so you can kind of see my process in adding or removing cards. Probably the next one it'll change because like I'll probably play against Salamangreats, maybe learn something new. But anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you later. Goodbye.